Welcome to the last part of the Present with Impact. And this part, it's all about the presentation itself in terms of how you're going to deliver it. We have learned how to plan a presentation, structure the presentation, and then how to create a visually stunning presentation. Now it's time for us to bring that all together and deliver an amazing presentation. So let's get into it. One of the key things that you need to remember is your presentation is a visual aid. I've been saying this and I'm going to say this. Why? Because when it comes to delivery, it's about you as a speaker. Your presentation is a visual aid that's going to aid you. And if something goes wrong, then you might have to do without the presentation. And is that something that you need to be ready for? And you should be able to do it without it as well. And the fact that if you've created the presentation entirely from scratch, you should definitely be able to do this with ease. All right. Remember, it's all about you as a speaker who's going to do your best to convey your information through your presentation and not expect that the presentation will do the job for you. So, in this part, we are actually going to talk about it in a very simple manner in terms of three stages of delivery, which is the before, the during, and the after. Very simple. These are the three stages that we go through in any way. And we know that before we get into the presentation, we have to have a presentation ready, right? So, once that is done, what are the other aspects that you can always do to be prepared to go and deliver your presentation? Let's take a look at it. So, the first thing we need to understand is who is a good presenter. A good presenter, think about all the great presenters that you've seen before. Maybe it was a video where you saw them presenting something. Maybe it was a live experience with a boss, with a colleague who's done such an impressive job of that presentation. So, what was it that made it impressive? What was it that made it impactful? Right? It's usually because a presenter did a great job. They were confident, they engaged, they were positive throughout, irrespective of maybe someone not behaving that well or asking them a question that they were not prepared for. They are passionate about what they are talking. Their energy flows through, and their entire experience was memorable because it was very authentic. That that they were really into what they were presenting, and that is what we need to imbibe as qualities as presenters, because this is going to help us make a very good presentation. All right, so one of the things is that you always learn to be more prepared and practice becoming a good presenter. It's not going to happen like that in a day, it's going to take some time. So do take the time and effort to start working on yourself and becoming a good presenter. The most important thing that you need to do before your presentation is to rehearse. If I haven't said it enough, I'm going to repeat it yet another time. Practice is key. All right, how do we do this is, I'm not asking you to memorize a presentation. Don't by heart it, don't mug it up. That's not what you're supposed to do. Instead, what you need to do is do this: put your presentation up, go through it, go through your talking points. What are you going to say? How are you going to say it? All these things. The minute you rehearse this, you will understand how the flow of the presentation is something seeming off, maybe there's a missing point, maybe there's something that you need to add, or maybe all of this is extra, this is not required, and you can maybe cut it off from your main presentation. But if you practice this once before you actually do your presentation, it's going to make a world of a difference. So talk naturally, learn to slow down, and learn to pause. When I say pause for emphasis, it's about pausing for key important points. When you've made a great point, wait. Let the audience take it in. Let them internalize it. Let them keep that in their mind and let them think about it for a minute. Let them introspect on that thing for a minute, right? So learn to slow down, learn to talk naturally. It should not feel forced. It should not feel like a very practiced effort, but practice so that you start and you're able to do all of these things. In the last minute, if you've not practiced, you're going to rush, you're going to speak fast, you're going to be rushing to complete everything. You are like tut, 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 like a typewriter going on full speed. Pausing is definitely not going to happen for sure, because you are that tensed and anxious. So rehearsing will help you with these three. All right, let's move on. Another couple of things that you can do is look at great speakers. What are they doing? How do they remain cool when someone asks them a question maybe that they were not prepared for, that they're thinking about to answer? They don't get scared. They don't think like, oh shit, I don't know the answer. They're going to be like, okay. So they're going to take the question. They're going to think about it for a second or two. They're going to pause, and then they're going to remain cool and answer. And if it's something they don't know, they're going to say they don't know. They're not going to make up something and then get really annoyed or frustrated about not giving the right answer. So look at others and be curious and want to know how others do it really well as well. The next thing is to time yourself. When you are rehearsing, when you are practicing, learn to time yourself. Look at the time that it is taking for you to actually do the presentation, and then look at the time that you actually have for the presentation. One thing, if it was a 5-minute presentation but your actual presentation is going to 15 minutes, then it does not mean that you go at super speed and try to do all those 15 minutes information in 5 minutes. No, it's of no use. You might as well not do the presentation that way. So remember, if you need to cut down things that are not required, that is not going to help you reduce your outcome, change your goal, then your structure, your plan was not exactly right. So you're going to have to work on that. So work on, we always kind of underestimate the amount of time it would actually take us to talk about something. We think that, yeah, I don't think I will say a lot of information, but that's usually not the case. We have a lot to say. All right, so always remember to time yourself when you're presenting, when you're rehearsing, so you know if you're within the time limit. Next thing, we need to review your slides. And when you're doing this presentation, when you are going through the entire practice stage, review your slides to see if the flow seems right. Is there something that seems out of place, something that needs to be, like I said, added, changed, modified, whatever is a requirement? Maybe something would be better. You could add a better piece of information here and instead of something else. So all of these things can happen only if you have time to review your slide. If you finished your presentation just before your meeting, just before you had to go do it, you will not have time to do this, and on the spot you will realize that something is off. Yeah, you don't want that to happen. And if you face a situation previously, then this is going to help you. Be prepared, go through it beforehand and review it. And finally, make sure that you stuck to the outline that you've created. A lot of last minute changes can actually hamper your entire structure. So ensure that your structure is still intact, that you haven't gone way beyond what you had thought about and you've added unnecessary information. Check if everything is well formatted, that it is very consistent and very clean, and that it is not out of place. Last but never the least important, and it's definitely not going to be the last time I'm saying this, practice. Please practice. It will make you better. It's not about becoming perfect, it's about becoming better every time you practice. All right, with that, let's move on to the next, which is during your presentation. So what do you do when you start, when you're just about to start your presentation? What are the things that you should do? First and foremost, imagine, visualize, get into the right state of mind and think that it's going to work out for the best. All right, the idea is to go do your best, and it's okay with what happens. And if possible, always imagine it going positively in the way that you want it to do. And here you can use any method of pep talk or any way that you pump yourself up before a presentation or calm yourself down before a presentation, whichever works for you. But here are a couple of tips. You can use positive visualization, how you're going to be ending that presentation and everyone is loving your presentation. You could visualize that. You could try a power pose for 2 minutes, which is where you hold a certain high power pose and stand in that to give you that instant boost of confidence. Or you can give yourself a pep talk, say that you're going to do an amazing, awesome job. And that's it. If you think you can't get someone to help you do it for you, ask them, pump me up, get me. This is why we have coaches, right? People who are going to push you and give you that positive boost that you need. Ask your friend, ask your family, ask someone to help you give that pep talk if you don't feel 100% there. But use something that works for you for that instant boost of confidence. And now, when you're there, take deep breaths. Remember, you need to, the more calm you are, it's going to be better for you. And if your hands are shivering, your hands are cold, your legs are shivering, you're feeling your heart is beating, your stomach feels weird, then think of it as your body is getting excited and pumped up so that you can go and do an awesome presentation. Don't think like, oh my God, I'm getting scared, I'm worried, I'm tensed, I'm nervous. No, you're excited. And that small shift in thinking will make a big difference. Adjust to your surrounding. The minute you go stand there, if it is a live situation, the minute you go and stand there, you don't have to start speaking. Get used to it. Stand there. Figure out if you're comfortable, and then once you feel a little okay, take a few seconds, pause, and then get started. You don't have to go there and jump into it. And it's the same way in the live in a virtual situation as well. You can also just take a couple of seconds, settle down, and then start with your presentation. You have definitely seen this earlier, that speaking, public speaking, or speaking in front of an audience is always a full body affair, which means that the words that you say are only 7% of the entire piece. The rest of the 93% is how your body language and your voice come across, right? So it is very, very important that as a presenter, you take these things into account and you look at the fact that your body language is there. You know, you look confident, you have the right posture, you're looking at your audience, your eye contact, your expressions, your gesture, you're not walking unnecessarily. We have an entire module on this. Please go and take a look at that if you have forgotten or if you have missed out. Learn to work on your voice so that you are speaking loudly, slowly, clearly, confidently, and that is going to help a lot, in addition to the amazing words that you are definitely going to say. This is a very important point. If you have been in the audience while the presenter is reading whatever is there on the presentation, then you know how annoying it is. So please do not be that person. Reading from your presentation is a big no no. It means that you're not ready, you're not prepared. If you're standing there or sitting there just reading lines from your presentation, I can do that myself. You don't have to do that for me. Does that make sense? The audience is going to think I can read this myself. There is no need for you as a speaker. It is important to actually focus on the audience. If you want to see how your audience is responding to you, are they engaging with you? Do they understand what you're saying? Do they have questions? Do they look confused? Are they distracted? For all of these things, you need to actually watch the audience, and you shouldn't be sitting and reading your slides. So, learn the first thing, eye contact is important. You need to watch your audience if you want to create an impact. So, stop reading from your slides. Please stop doing that. It's not a good idea. If that is the case, you can just send them the presentation and ask them to go ahead and read it, because you are not required. I can read the presentation instead of listening to you read it. Does that make sense? And finally, audience connect. All of this that we've spoken so far is one sided, where your presentation is one sided. But if you want your audience to interact with you, to engage with you, especially if it's a long presentation, if it goes anywhere between 5-10 minutes, you need to start adding an element of interaction. And if you're a beginner, you can try this slowly. You can do a little bit and then move and keep adding it in stages. But this is something that you should definitely try out. The reason is your audience definitely, irrespective of how amazing it is, sometimes they might get distracted. So you want to keep them engaged, you want to keep them taking all the information that you're sharing with them, which is why we work on audience connect. There's an entire module on this. If you haven't watched under Speak with Impact, please do so. So here are some quick points as a summary. The presentation, try to make it more audience focused. Learn to talk with your audience, ask questions, interact, make it conversational. Ask questions, smile, maintain eye contact. Learn to get your audience to participate with you. When you ask questions, start with easy questions, move it more. Know how to listen to what your audience is saying. Keep the interaction going, because when you listen and keep them engaged, they are more likely to take away a lot more information. All right, so audience connect is something that I would highly suggest you add to your presentations. And this is something, if you've already used storytelling, then you are doing it. But asking questions can also be a great way. In addition to this, I have shared a lot more techniques for audience connect. You can definitely take a look at it under the speech make it interesting module. If you've done everything that I've told you, if you've created the presentation in the right structure and the format, then you know that your conclusion is also very, very important. So some things that you need to understand is, what is that core message and the most important points that you want your audience to remember. What you need to do is keep emphasizing it, keep driving those points home, and don't overwhelm the audience with all the other messages. In the conclusion, just keep driving that information to them. So you would have started with a core message, your all the 3 points are covered, and then in the conclusion you're driving it back again, because that is what you want your audience to remember. All right, ensure that you keep hitting that message, because that is what you want them to take away. All right, and with that, let's move to the final stage of being done with the presentation. What should you do after? Usually what most people do is they start obsessing. They're like, oh my god, I made a mistake, I should not have done that, I should not have said this, I should have, practiced a little earlier, I made this mistake. We tend to obsess. But here is a better way of actually doing something that's going to help you improve for the next presentation. It's about reviewing and reflecting. So think back to your presentation and look at what is the feedback that you can maybe get from others. But even if there is nothing, you can also think about it yourself. Look at, I always ask my students to do this. Two things whenever you speak: what went well, what could be better, and you could use the same method of feedback for presentations as well. Look at what went well. Was a design great? Was a structure great? What could be better? Maybe you should be better prepared. Maybe you should have practiced more. Maybe you should be ready for the questions that people are going to answer. So, what is it that you need to prepare? If you do this step, instead of obsessing, instead of feeling bad and feeling guilty or whatnot, do this instead. Review and reflect on what you could do better the next time instead of anything else. And this small piece of improvement is going to make your next presentation better, the one after that even better. And if you keep doing this over the course of time, you will reach that stage where you are doing amazing presentations. I hope this delivery module helped you. I hope this entire course was really useful for you. I have a little bit more in the next video in terms of how we're going to close this. But with this, we are done with the presenting part of this entire piece. And I hope you have learned enough. The next step is to go deliver that presentation and do an amazing job of it. I know you're going to do this because you know why? Whatever you do, however you do it, there is always scope of improvement. You will get better with practice. I will see you in the next video.